The teen drama as we know it wasn't something that was really common in the early 90s, at least from what I can tell. I was a kid at the time, so I'm basing a lot of this off research and looking at the shows that were airing. And that's not saying there weren't attempts. There were a couple attempts, but none of them really lasted long enough. And if they did last, they transitioned more into overall dramas versus just being a teen drama, which, in my opinion, is focusing on teen life in high school as well as university. These shows would go beyond that scope. The teen drama as we know it kind of hit its height in the late 90s and early 2000s with shows like Dawson's Creek, Degrassi, and The OC. But like I said, there were attempts out there, and in 1992, CBS decided to give it the old college try with their drama, Freshman Dorm.
Remember your first taste of freedom?
No parents, no curfews.
A time when you were both excited and frightened.
Everything's different here.
That special time has come for these college freshmen.
I'm Zach.
Yes, we know.
And they'll learn more than they ever expected. The special preview of Freshman Dorm, Tuesday on CBS.
Before we get to the actual show, we have to talk about the book series that inspired it. Freshman Dorm, the book series, is made up of 32 regular books and 8 super specials from the husband and wife team of Linda Albert and Kevin Cooney, who go under the pseudonym of Linda A. Cooney. The series, which was published between 1990 and 1995, would have a collection of titles that just kind of seemed like they threw a dart at a board and picked out whatever word they hit. Along with Freshman Dorm, the first book, there are other titles like Freshman Flames, Freshman Taboo, Freshman Celebrity, Freshman Guys, Freshman Loves, etc., etc. I stumbled across it last year when I was looking up teen books from this time period. It's kind of an obsession of mine. And I came across Freshman Dorm, the first one in the series, and I was kind of intrigued by its very busy cover. There's a lot going on. There's a collage type atmosphere, and I wanted to know more. So I bought it, read it, and was immediately hooked. And I ended up buying most, but not all, of the rest of the books in the series. Currently, I'm on a book about 7, so I'm not too far into it, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there very slowly. The series itself focuses on 3 friends who come to university together and kind of the ups and downs of their lives as they navigate their first year. There are a few other characters, supporting characters involved in the story as well as a couple supporting characters who do get their own point of view chapters. But the main focus is on the 3 friends, the girls that come to school together, Winnie, Faith, and Casey. So far, from what I've read, again, only as far as about book 7 or 8, Winnie is stuck in a rut. She doesn't know much about herself. She's destroyed some couple relationships, both friendly and romantic, and basically just doesn't know what to do or who she is. As for Faith, also came to university with her boyfriend Brooks, who she almost immediately broke up with in book 1. Well, it's more towards the end of book 1. But she broke up with her boyfriend, went through some relationship issues, but is mostly trying to make her mark on the drama department. And as for KC, which is short for Kaya Cyan or Cayenne, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but she comes from a working class background, which she wants to shed and basically have a better station in life than what her parents have. So her main mission is to join a sorority and use that to, improve who she is. Now, I mentioned that because you think that the series itself would have the same focus, maybe a few characteristic changes here and there. And if you did think that, you would be wrong. It seems like the show really took the idea of freshman dorm of, young adults starting this new chapter of their lives, took some characteristics and some character traits, threw them into a hat, shook it around, and then took them out and said, okay, here's what characteristics this character is going to have. Here's the characteristics that this character is going to have. And that's what we got. More on that in a second. As for the TV show itself, it only lasted 5 episodes. So instead of just focusing on the pilot, I'm going to kind of introduce the characters and then talk about their evolution and the changes they go through over the course of the 5-episode run. And I'll do that for the 3 main girls. So in the TV show, we focus in on Casey, Molly, and Lulu. The first character we meet is Molly, who arrives with her boyfriend Danny, who's also at the school on a sports scholarship, and her parents. Her mom seems very confused about co-ed dorms.
You'll be right up. Where is it? Oh, there it is. I just need to make a quick stop in the girls' room. Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. I thought that was the girls' room.
Well, Mom, this is a co-ed dorm.
Molly is kind of this universe's Faith. She's a theater major and initially comes here with what I mentioned, her significant other. She's also portrayed as a bit more naive than the other girls. And her storyline basically revolves around the changing dynamics of her relationship and her life. She and Danny basically use university as an excuse to take their relationship up several levels. In the first episode, they sleep together for the first time. And the second, they decide that Molly should move into his very tiny dorm room because they're spending so much time together. At the same time, she's spending a lot of time with her theater group, and group leader Christopher takes notice of her, eventually in a romantic way, after she challenges him.
Obviously, he comes very highly recommended.
Wait a minute.
Ah, you again.
Look, this isn't fair. I mean, how come he gets to be assistant director when none of us have even had a chance?
Because I get to decide.
Well, yeah, but that's not...
Look, I think my productions here have been...
No, I know all about your productions here because I spent hours researching them. I mean, your posters are about as exciting as traffic signs. I mean, your programs have a pathetic, what, 2 pages of advertising? You have no patrons or corporate sponsors, and your only fundraising event was a bake sale that raised $411. I mean, you may be a brilliant director, but you don't know poop about running a theater.
Poop? Is that what they call it in Milwaukee?
Let me tell you something about Milwaukee. Okay, we don't sit around all day milking cows and eating cheese. We have our own ballet and our own symphony. And when it comes to provocative theater, we did Waiting for Godot in 8th grade. We respect each other and we work hard for what we want. And we never let personal relationships influence our artistic decisions.
Look, why don't you...
No, why don't you find my proposal, all right? Why don't you read it and why don't you give me a call?
For her and Danny, their main cusp of their storyline together is that they end up fighting about a lot of things. So they fight about their small space because there's not enough room for both of them in there. She has all of her things, he has all of his things. He has his friends and dorm mates that he interacts with, which kind of interfere with their lives. And she has her theater group. So there's a lot of conflicting things going on.
My black and gold ones, I can't find them.
Yeah, well, they were here yesterday.
Can't find anything anymore.
Listen, honey, I promise I'll clean the room later. Okay? I just really need to get some sleep.
Can you just try to be a little bit more organized?
What?
No offense, Molly, but I mean, your room at home was always a mess too. You never throw anything out.
Well, that was at home. I mean, I'm different here.
You're still saving popsicle sticks. I just found them in the drawer.
So what? I can't believe we're having a fight over stupid popsicle sticks.
That's my point. What good are they?
Hey, Polly, you got any deodorant?
Bronco, you're gonna have to learn how to knock, all right?
Eventually, at the end of episode 2, she moves out after realizing that it's not going to work and goes back to her room with Casey and Lulu. So then she and Danny struggle to find that balance that they were struggling with earlier on, to balance their relationship with all these other things. Danny also gets a bit jealous of Christopher and is worried that maybe Molly has some feelings for him. Their conclusion, at least at the end of the episodes that we saw, those 5 episodes, is that they're just going to take things a bit slower and try to figure it out.
You're right about one thing. We don't seem to share much anymore. Certainly not friends.
Well, Danny, we can't expect to move in the exact same circles that we did in high school.
That's what bothers me, Molly. We don't move in the same circles at all. Sometimes I feel like we're just 2 straight lines going off in our own separate directions.
So, what do you think we should do about it?
I don't know. But I'd like to stop arguing about it. It seems like all we ever do anymore is argue.
Danny, that's not true. I mean, sure, we may have our differences, but we... Okay, look, maybe we should just lighten up about everything. I mean, so what if I don't like some of your friends and you don't like some of mine? I mean, big deal. We shouldn't let that get in the way of you and me.
Yeah, I'll catch up with you.
Okay?
KC in this universe, the KC stands for Kamala Consuelo Ricardo, goes by the name Casey Richards, and she is most like her book counterpart compared to the other characters and the book characteristics that they have. KC is her nickname, of course, while Richards is a way for her to separate herself from her lower middle class immigrant family, as she's seemingly embarrassed by her background. For example, when we first meet her, she has her dad stop the car so she can walk partway to campus with her bags instead of letting them drive her.
Dad, it's okay.
Carmela, por favor.
Hey, wait a minute. Come on, Casey. Just a minute, Casey.
Dad, please.
Let me do it.
Ay. ¿Qué pasa?
Casey is going to walk, okay?
What? A walk.
It's easier.
It's better for the car.
She then sets her sights on joining a sorority and goes so far as to lie about her dad, who is a gardener, and says he does something else for a job.
What is your father in?
Plants.
Plants?
Yes, he's a botanist.
How fascinating.
He's one of the top botanists in the world. He's a genius.
He must do very well.
Extremely. Fabulously.
At the same time, she kind of has a bit of the beginnings of a romance with her dorm mate, Zach. Zach is a surfer who likes to meditate a lot. He's also pre-med. And he and Casey hit it off right away and seem to really like each other, but they don't really go into their relationship yet. He even goes so far as to help her, and I say help in air quotes, when she faints in class after she works a double shift and then doesn't get sleep. She just goes from her job to school.
Beginning with Much Ado About Nothing. We shall read it in the original.
Hey, stand back, everybody. I'm pre-med. She's out of danger now.
Yeah, so that was something that happened. Zach himself goes through a bit of a jealousy storyline when he thinks she's interested in someone else, but that's not the only obstacle they face with this potential other suitor. Both her lies and her potential relationship hit a point in episode 5 when her old boyfriend Carlos comes to visit. Basically, she had invited Zach to this Western-themed party at the sorority, but when Carlos shows up, she goes with him. Carlos doesn't know she lied, and he calls her out on it when he finds out.
I tried to tell you about this out in the truck, but you wouldn't let me. Look, I thought I had to make Dad's job sound more interesting, or else they might not have accepted me.
Do you even try to be honest?
It was easier this way. I don't want to be the token blue-collar kappa that got accepted because it was politically correct to have the daughter of a gardener.
That's who you are.
No, that's who he is. It's not who I am.
Your father is an honest, hard-working man that you should be proud of.
I am proud of him. And I know that lying about him was stupid and wrong. And I'm sorry if you felt it was necessary to lie about yourself as well.
I couldn't very well let Cynthia think that your boyfriend is some poor migrant farm worker's son. He might have thrown us out of the party. You know, Casey, when I drove down here this weekend, I tried to leave all my expectations behind. And I knew that things would be different between us, but I thought I was ready for the changes. And your new life, your new friends, even a new guy. What I was not ready for was to see you turn away from the people who helped shape you into the girl that I used to love.
She then kind of, They kind of go their separate ways for now because he goes back home and she apologizes to Zach, and that's kind of where their storyline and of course her storyline, because it's episode 5, ends.
JC, I'm sorry about what I said to you earlier about you not deserving Carlos.
Don't worry about it. You were probably right. And it was awfully noble of you to defend him.
Well, thanks. But I'm not so sure my motives were really all that noble.
You mean you weren't sticking up for your fellow male?
No, mostly I was trying to hide some petty jealousies. So instead I end up insulting you. I'm one smooth customer, aren't I?
You're not smooth at all. That's what I like about you. So, how was your date? She's pretty cute for a blonde.
It was fun. She's a nice girl.
Are you going to see her again?
Maybe. We'll see.
Well, if you're not too tied up with her, there will be other Kappa activities that I'm sure you'll be dying to attend.
And what about non-Kappa activities? Am I eligible for those as well?
Definitely.
As for Lulu,
Present myself. I am Louise Victoria Abercrombie, but everyone, absolutely everyone calls me Lulu.
she's the least like any of the specific characters in the book, in my opinion. She does come from a rich background, like Lauren, one of the girls' roommates, but that's pretty much it. Lulu is very confident, very in your face, and very bold. Initially, I found her very off-putting, especially in the first episode, but she kind of grew on me because there were hints that there was something else going on in her life that maybe has influenced kind of how she presents herself to the world. So her storyline starts off with her basically doing that, asserting herself around campus, but it continues on with a highly uncomfortable storyline where she has an attraction to her professor, and he also is attracted to her. She also develops kind of a potential romance with fellow student Joe, but he doesn't appear until the second episode. She also pisses off Casey's sorority president, Cynthia, more than a few times.
Sorority brunch, new Kappa. You. Too much.
Do you know what the penalty is for kidnapping?
What were you doing in Casey's bed?
What were you doing in my room, you terrorist? I am calling the dean.
This is a perfectly legitimate Kappa ritual.
This is perfectly barbaric. I'm lucky you didn't sacrifice me on the altar.
How dare her?
Beluga caviar. How divine. Pour me some coffee.
What do you think you're doing?
Eating breakfast. Or I could go home and call my lawyer. You decide.
Her professor storyline is kind of put to an end, thankfully, when Cynthia puts a poster up telling everyone they're having an affair, which they deny as they aren't. They're just kind of dancing around that whole thing. Then Lulu kind of talks to her professor's wife, gets some insight into him, and seemingly moves on.
I mean, I came here to do the adult thing and come clean with you, and instead I've just upset you.
I'm not upset.
You're not.
Sydney has had his share of admiring co-eds ever since I can remember. But I must admit, nothing quite so creative has ever come out of it.
Well, I hope I haven't been a big part of the problems you've been having. Dr. Beckenstein mentioned that you were separated.
That's true. Unfortunately, it's not over anything quite so simple as a young girl's crush on my husband. Believe me, I wish it were. But I appreciate your concern.
I feel like such an idiot.
You're what, 18?
Yeah, I guess it shows.
On the contrary, I don't think I would have had the guts to do this at 18. I don't think I have the guts now.
Well, stupidity and youth go hand in hand.
My mother always used to say, people don't grow up, they just get older. I don't believe that. I'm gonna keep trying to grow up.
Likewise.
As for Joe, they have this kind of banter where they perceive to hate each other, but also respect each other and also kind of like each other. So it's basically that, we are complete opposites and we shouldn't match what we do. which, like most things in this 5-episode run, doesn't really go too far because the show ended. But you definitely see that there was something there that might have gone further if the show had continued. Now, I'm going to mention one other main character who doesn't really have a storyline tied to the three main girls. Yes, he interacts with them, but that's pretty much about it, more or less. And that is Zach's roommate, Alex. So his storyline and connection to the three main girls is basically to offer advice to either them or their potential partners, but not much else.
I guess there's no way to prepare ourselves. I thought I knew what it's gonna be like, but it's just different. Everything's different here.
Hey, but isn't that why we came?
He does have one storyline in episode 2, which suggested that perhaps he was supposed to do more than what he did, and maybe like find more about himself or his culture and his heritage, but that doesn't go far.
Hi, are you familiar with the African American Culture Club?
No, but I'd like to be.
Well, right now we're putting on an interpretive dance recital to raise money for the Kwanzaa celebration.
Kwanzaa?
You do know what Kwanzaa is? The African celebration of independence.
Well, I guess it never made it to my neighborhood.
And where's that?
Suburbs outside of Seattle.
Well, here's something new to take back home.
In the same episode, he also has a romantic storyline, which also doesn't go far. Like, both of those kind of hinted at stories just end with episode 2, and then he's back just shelling out advice and being there to, say a few lines at a scene, which is unfortunate because I wanted to know more about him and his character. I just didn't want him to have a few lines here and there. So I looked at the ratings for the show and I couldn't really find anything for this. I searched and searched and searched, and that tells me that the show itself wasn't even in the top 100 of shows for that year, which kind of makes sense if the show, again, was canceled. So that's the first thing, is that it wasn't really getting the views. However, I do think that the show's approach to like kind of getting an audience early was good. I just don't think they were fully aware of kind of where people were going, at least from my opinion. Again, I don't know the ratings. There's nothing I can find that says why the show was canceled. So this is pretty much an assumption from me as to what could have happened and what led to the cancellation, besides low ratings. So Freshman Dorm premiered in August of 1991, and it kind of tried to do what a lot of these other teen shows have done, is to do summer episodes to kind of garner that audience before everything else premieres. The OC did it in 2003, and Beverly Hills 90210 was doing it at the same time. For example, in 1991, 90210 started their summer season in July. So they were already, getting viewers and, encouraging people to come back every week. Freshman Dorm, again, taking that approach, was actually really good for them. However, they were airing at the same time as 90210. So if 90210 already had that audience, then people really weren't going to, flip over. So I really feel that would have hurt the show's chances. Again, I can't say if it did, but I can say that, the competition was there. The show was also a lead-in for 2000 Malibu Road, which was also canceled early, which its own competition was Melrose Place. So again, there was a lot stacking up against this, 2-hour time period. And I can't say much about what reviewers or critics thought about the time because there's not a lot out there. I will note that Variety did note that the show, while bad in the first episode, seemed to get better in the second, and they had hopes that it would, I mean, they didn't think it was great, but they said it would probably draw in, and I quote, the Melrose crowd. So they really thought that it would garner an audience based on the fact that it was similar to these other shows. However, there was one review that was not as kind, from the LA Times. And I'm going to quote a few parts from it. They said, already Fox's Beverly Hills 90210 has spun off Melrose Place as a precursor to this fall's crush of series dwelling on the under 30 bunch. But it's CBS that has really outdone itself. Not since Sandra Dee and Troy Donahue has there been the likes of Freshman Dorm, its new summer drama series about campus hanky-panky airing 9 tonight on channels 2 and 8. It then goes on to call it hilariously bad, and at the end references that scene where Casey gets kissed by Zach after she faints in class. And they say, it's hard to say what's worse, tonight's script, the direction, or some of the acting. One scene in particular has the makings of a classic. When exhausted Casey topples from her chair in class after working all night in a local hangout, that big beluga Zach is beside her in an instant. They then kind of talk about what he does, and then says, after he tells her that she's out of danger now, they quote reference to Troy Donahue and says, Troy couldn't have done it better. So I mean, again, the show mixed reviews. And again, as you can see, my feelings on the show is mixed as well. I feel like I could have done better. A lot, it was kind of bland. And I will note that some of the acting did need work. Sometimes it felt like they were reading off a sandwich board. There was also something very odd that felt very, very after school special to me. At the end of each episode, the girls would routinely have like some type of hot beverage, like hot chocolate or coffee or something, and would kind of discuss the morals and lessons they learned and kind of what they take away from it, which once that was okay, like in the first episode, but then it just seemed weird that they would constantly do that. I don't know, maybe it's just me. The last thing I'll mention is that I found the title of the show to be a bit weird. I know it's based off of the book series, um, and but I'm curious as to if the show had been a hit, if the show had gotten a full season, gotten picked up for season two, what would it have been called? Or would they have like just a brand new cast of freshman characters? Like it's called Freshman Dorm because it focuses on the freshman year of school, of university. What were they going to do in season two when they weren't freshmen anymore? Like I said, it could have been a brand new set of characters. It could have been a name change. Maybe. Maybe they were going to take one of the titles from the book series, and season two would have been called like Freshman Flames or Freshman Guys or Freshman Taboo or something. I don't know. That's the thing that I'm just kind of randomly wondered about when it came to choosing a title for the show and sticking with it. So that's it for the attempt that was Freshman Dorm. If you haven't seen the episodes and you do want to watch them, I've linked them in the description below. Thank you so much to Books in a Forest on archive.org for posting them. If you watched it initially or you finished those episodes, let me know what you think. And also, if you've read the book series, let me know what you think of that too. It's interesting, and I'd love to hear what others think.